Now to discuss the state of the crypto market, we've got Nic Puckrin, crypto analyst, investor, and founder of Coin Bureau. Nic, thank you so much for joining us today. So this week we've seen a pullback in crypto. Bitcoin, Ethereum's been under some pressure. Let's start out with Bitcoin and talk about the pressure it's been facing this week. It's been quickly approaching 113,000 after recently reaching those highs, well above 120,000. What do you make of what's happened recently in the pressure? Is this normal?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me. Yeah, as it relates to Bitcoin, I think there's been a lot of profit taken, especially if you'll recall last week, we had Bitcoin break through a previous all-time highs pretty quickly at 124,000. And I think there was a lot of profit taking coming from older investors who'd held Bitcoin for many years, and we'd seen that in the data. We'd also seen it on-chain that there'd been less capital inflows coming into Bitcoin to meet the supply coming from these older investors. And I think that right now, one of the biggest factors driving Bitcoin is what drives most risk assets or risk on assets, which is the macro environment. And it seems as if last week there was the PPI numbers that came out hotter than expected sent the market slower, as well as Bitcoin. And now Bitcoin is kind of like taking its tune as well from the rest of the TradFi markets, in the sense that it's now looking at what's going to happen with regards to Fed's speech at Jackson Hole tomorrow. So that's what's driving the uncertainty, and allocators in the TradFi space have pulled back some of their purchasing of Bitcoin. And then we've also got the Bitcoin Treasury companies, which have also slowed their purchases over the past few days, including Strategy and a few others, which have also had pressure on their share prices. So you put all of these factors into a melting pot, and that's the reason that Bitcoin the price action has been lackluster over the past few days.
So more correlated to equities, for instance, recently. What about Ethereum, right? Ethereum had been also catching a bid recently, and there had been all this, kind of hope around it. When and would it catch up to Bitcoin and the bullish sentiment, extreme bullish sentiment around it? What do you see as the drivers around Ethereum now, and where does sentiment stand?
I think one of the main drivers of Ethereum is now one of the drivers that was pushing Bitcoin a few months ago, which is the accumulation by corporate treasuries. So we've seen many companies in the US that have tried to replicate the strategy or micro-strategy playbook of buying Bitcoin for their balance sheets, accessing the capital market, and buying Ethereum for their balance sheet, and accessing the capital markets to buy this Ethereum. And this has led to a price insensitive bid for Ethereum from these treasury companies. And so far since June, the treasury companies have accumulated about 1.6% of the current ETH total supply, and they're not looking to slow down at all. And that came on top of also a lot of interest and excitement back into Ethereum from the likes of the ETF inflows have been a lot stronger over the past few months as investors have started to gravitate back towards Ethereum. And that has also led to a spike in the open interest on the futures market. And on-chain, you can also see that there's been large accumulation from whale wallets as opposed to retail. And there's also that's obviously on the price action side, but in terms of network, there's obviously the fact that we've had increased transactional demand. There's also increased DeFi activity. And we've also had a lot of upgrades recently, including the Pectra upgrade back in May. So also all these factors have led to a resurgence in ETH demand. And no doubt price action is probably one of the best selling points for ETH. And given the fact that ETH has been able to recover, a lot of people now want to come back into ETH from Bitcoin and other crypto assets. And that's what's caused the outperformance of ETH versus Bitcoin.
Well, it certainly seems more accessible, at least when you think about the price point around it. But let me ask you this, Nic. Do you all in the crypto community pay attention to Jackson Hole as much as you hear about it, for instance, in the equity market?
Well, not generally. I think especially this is a new environment, right? Because there is so much institutional capital buying into crypto. And as a result, these institutional asset allocators are driven by factors like the macro, and obviously Fed policy as it pertains to interest rates is very important for macro liquidity, which impacts on all risk assets. And crypto investors, in the past, crypto was a nascent asset and people didn't pay attention to these, particular macro factors. But now, because it drives much of the global equity and risk assets, crypto investors do pay attention. Probably not so much on the small niche altcoin stage, but generally it's all one big pool of liquidity. And as that impacts on the crypto markets more broadly, it's going to impact on their altcoins as well.
Okay. The altcoins as well. Excuse me. I need more coffee this morning. Nic, let me ask you this then. When you think about how altcoins are performing, when might we see broader market momentum around that?
I think that, altcoins are, like I said, it's probably down to liquidity. The thing that will most likely drive altcoin and what they term an altcoin season in crypto parlance is retail coming back into the market, retail coming to bid these altcoins, especially the altcoins lower down the crypto risk curve. Yeah. And this will come, I think, when you have easier access to capital and credit. And this is all driven by liquidity. So I think that that's one of the main factors. We need to have interest rates coming down in September, and we need to have easier access for retail, and then eventually you'll start to see this rotation. The rotation usually happens in crypto from Bitcoin to Ethereum first, so Ethereum as the primary altcoin, but then it will start to rotate to other altcoins down the risk spectrum. And you also have to look at the technicals, like people like to look at the others to BTC chart, which is the term, the others is the term for all altcoins below the top 10 in market cap. They'd sometimes look at the Bitcoin dominance term, which is just Bitcoin's market cap relative to the total crypto market cap. So those are the technical factors they look at. But I think that one of the biggest catalysts will no doubt be easier monetary policy, which many are hoping will come in September.
Okay. You answered the next question in my mind, which is that you all would be hoping for a rate cut. All right, Nic, we will leave our conversation there for today. Really enjoyed our conversation today. That's Nic Puckrin, a crypto analyst, investor, and founder of Coin Bureau. Thank you.